guys, so I'm here today to do my monthly recommendations for the month of April, and this month's theme is big books, or mainly books that are over 500 pages. So a lot of the time I feel like the average length of a book is like 350 pages. Like whenever Goodreads send me like an average of the books that I'm reading, it always goes to like 350 is the average of pages of overall. So 350 is a very general size for books. So books that are 500 pages are a bit above average. So that's what's fun about them though, is even though they're bigger, there's more story, there's more elements to get into, and just they're a lot of fun. So I've got 6 to recommend you guys, and I hope you want to read all of them. So the first book I'd like to recommend is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. This is more of a sadder book, but one that I definitely think everyone needs to read. It really shows World War II and how the Jews felt in like the lives of just everyday people, and it was really good. And also what's interesting about this book is it's actually narrated by death. It is very interesting having like a narrator who is really unbiased and doesn't have opinion really about much. Like he observes the characters in the books, and there's times where he goes to different people, different places, and does a lot of just, it's not always just about Liesel and her life. Like even though he's taken like a liking to her, he still has just this really interesting opinion on everything, and he talks about things so interestingly that you like want to know more about things but you just can't. And it like also with this narration is he sort of spoils things for you in a sense. It's like death doesn't care about telling you the story at the beginning and then elaborating on it at the end. Like you know so many things going into this book, and it's just so emotional reading it because of this experience, and it's just like my heart. And it's just so hard to read sometimes. Like I had to read this for school and I was so happy I did, because it's just such a amazingly written book, but it's just so sad. The next book I'd like to recommend is A Call to Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. Like I know ACOTAR is the first book and this is the second book, but I'm recommending right now for those people who have only read ACOTAR and thought it was a piece of crap. Like I know, when I first read ACOTAR I really liked it, but I still felt like there was something missing from it. So if you haven't taken the plunge to read this book, or if you're still just on book 1 and need like motivation, please read this. This book is like 600 and something pages, so it's a very big one, but it is so worth to read. Every one of these pages has something amazing on it, and just there's so much good friendship and power building and just redemption and just everything you want in a book. Like this was my favorite book of last year. It'll probably be like a favorite book for a while, and it's 2 weeks till ACOTAR War and I'm dying, but like everyone just needs to pick up this book before ACOTAR War comes out, and then you can come fangirl about it with me. The next book I'd like to recommend is the Night World series by LJ Smith, and technically there is 3 books in this one, but it's like it's one edition. Like it literally has, it says 500 pages on here, but these series consist of 9 books. The 10th one, I'm just warning you when you go into the series, it's the 10th one. We've been waiting for it for like 8 years and it hasn't come out. She's just not writing it, and I don't know why, but the first 9 ones are great. And what's great about this series is it's a companion series, so each book is about a different character and they all intertwine and interlock and everything. It's just amazing. But there's 3 books, like there's 3 in one, so you only need to buy 3 versions and each are over 500 pages, but it is just so worth the read, and it's just an amazing world, and there's so many different species and elements and animals and just so many magical elements working in the night world, and it's just, oh, and you will get attached to so many of these characters. And I've read this book so long ago and I'm just still waiting for this last book to come out. There's so many series I actually have where like the last one has not come out, and it's just like, just publish the damn book. But definitely recommend this. Please read it. The next book I'd like to recommend is the Lux series by Jennifer Armentrout, and again this is 2 books in one, but this one is like 800 pages, so it's very big. Like say 400 for each book, so that's pretty good. But the Lux series is just a great fluffy duffy romance with aliens in it. Like it's one of those books that you just read for the fun of it. Like it's just, there's not too much hard work goes into reading this series. Like it's pretty much just our world. It's just got the addition of aliens, but it's just so much fun and the characters are so good, and just I love the like witty banter and the love and the romance and the just friendship. It's just, I can't, like this is one of my favorite series because it was just so much fun. And there is 5 books in total, plus there is the first book from Damon's perspective, who was the guy, and it was just so good getting into his head because I love him. He's one of my favorite characters, and he's just, guys, you gotta read this series if you haven't already. The next book I'd like to recommend is Illuminated by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, and this is a very easy book to read, even though it's 600 pages, because it is told in this very funky way of text and photos, and like literally there's just the pages of people's faces. Like you just look at this, like look, there's this one's just got one line on it. Like, you know, it's just a very easy book. I read this whole thing in one day, and I still haven't read Gemini. I really need to do that, but this is a great book, and it's a great because it's like the Illuminated files, so you're looking at all these files of this like space war thing going on. Like it's the hardest book to explain, but I just saying you got to read it. Like the only problem I had was that you were just told everything, like you didn't really get shown anything or know really how people were feeling. I pushed that aside because the witty banter in this book was great, the villains were great, the characters were great, and I really am excited to read Gemina in some point in my life. But definitely great book, and it's a very quick read for being such a big one. And the last book I'd like to recommend is Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. I have to say this is probably one of her most well written books in all of the Shadowhunter books. Like if you've read all the other series, because just saying you'd have to read the other like 20 million books to get to this one, but if you've read them all but you haven't actually gotten to Lady Midnight yet, like maybe you are in the mindset of, oh, there's too many Shadowhunter books, like there's no need to read this, like really you should. And if you haven't read the other books, maybe, I don't know, you really can't pick this up without reading the other ones. But this book was just so well written. It's just got such great characters and it's such a good plot line, and it's really plot driven, this one, and it's so big too. Like the other books are always like 300 to 400 page books, so this one started out as being a massive chunker of a book. But I just think everyone needs to read this, and it took me a while to read it too because I was waiting for Tales of Shadowhunter Academy to come out that I read this, but it was just beautiful, really beautiful, and I just hope you guys would consider reading this because it's just amazing. It's a great book, definitely a great book, and you should just read the whole Shadowhunters world, and there's like maybe like 20,000 pages of reading you can do. So these are all the books I'd like to recommend, and you can see they're all pretty chunky. They're all chunky books, but they're all amazing, and I totally recommend all of them, and I hope you would read them. They're all pretty popular though, so I feel like they probably are. Probably Nightworld is like the least popular out of those, I would say, because it's such an old book, but I still recommend it. But anyway guys, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!